Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started in just a second. Thank you all for joining us for our weekly webinar. All right, Team MASSCreative, are you ready to rock? Yep. Okay. All right. And away we go. So quickly, I'm going to start with some federal updates. So this week, the House released the HEROES Act, which is a $3 trillion stimulus bill. It focuses really on significant aid to states and local governments. There's also carve-outs for arts and culture and humanities. However, this is not a bill that's supported by the Majority Leader McConnell nor the White House. And in fact, yesterday, the White House said they would veto this bill if it made its way to the president's desk. So this is the first in the step in the process towards a fourth stimulus bill. We are working with our national partners to make sure that the creative community is reflected and included in that fourth stimulus bill. So let's move to state updates. And so I think this is this is going to be the main focus of our conversation today, which is the Reopening Advisory Board report, which is due next Monday, May 18th. So thank you all who signed on to our letter 2 weeks ago urging that the Reopening Advisory Board include representation from the creative and cultural sector. We know that several groups, cultural organizations and institutions presented to that Reopening Advisory Board through the process. There was a group of Greater Boston Museums, as well as a group of Boston-based mid-sized performance and presenting venues that presented to the Reopening Board. MASSCreative was asked to make a presentation to the staff of the Office of Housing and Economic Development that's working closely with the Reopening Advisory Board. And we chose to use that time to include a panel of arts and cultural leaders that reflect the diversity and the breadth of the sector. So our goal really, again, was about sharing the diversity of and the breadth and depth of the creative and cultural sector in Massachusetts and make sure that folks knew so that the board knew that a one-size-fits-all model wasn't going to work for our industry. And we also wanted to offer clear partnership of the sector to the efforts to reopen the economy in Massachusetts. We made 4 asks. The first one was clear discipline and venue-specific guidelines for reopening. We've seen actually in other states like Maryland, Connecticut, and Utah that leaders of the creative and cultural community have actually been recruited to help take the mandates and public health guidelines and apply it to discipline-specific guidance. And we asked that that be something that the Reopening Board consider as well. We also asked that the sector be included in access to supplies, PPE, and to be trained on contact tracing protocols that might come up. Then we talked a little bit with the staff about the need for sustained support through full reopening. We're bracing ourselves, as I'm sure many of you are, that parts of our sector are going to be able to reopen and resume operations before others. Our business is about gathering people and bringing communities together, just like the restaurant industry, just like retail. We are in the public and main streets. And so as a result, not all of us will be able to resume full operations right away. And that means that a vital component of the economic engine of Massachusetts won't be fully recovered immediately. And so we believe it's really important that there be sustained support throughout the sector through the full reopening of our sector and the economy of Massachusetts. And we're going to keep advocating for that. Then finally, we also talked about something we anticipate, which is a social messaging campaign to bring tourists and bring residents back into the Commonwealth and to participate in arts and cultural experiences. This is exactly the playbook that Toronto used in the early aughts when there was a SARS outbreak. And we think it's something that we're going to need the state and local municipalities to participate in. So next, I'm going to just give a shout out to the folks who joined me. We curated a panel of arts and cultural leaders that really helped bring depth and contrast to exactly the work that we do. And so I want to thank Tim, Davi, David, and David, Troy, Joe, Jesse, and Harold for your work in preparing for that presentation, and then the expertise you brought to that conversation. This is a collaborative effort, and I especially want to thank you all. So then I'm going to talk about, on May 11th, the reopening board provided a presentation, which is a little preview of what we can expect. So ta-da, it's going to be a phased in approach. And the phases aren't going to be triggered to start based on a date or a number of days or months. They're going to be triggered to start by scientific data. And so we expect that that's going to include the number of ICU beds that are occupied, the number of cases, and the number of deaths. And so that will be the sort of the circuit breakers that will move us into the next phase. The next piece of the slide deck, which Selassie, I think you put in the chat box already, is that in phase one, they are going to talk about sort of 3 dimensions and instructions, both to the general public, in the entire Commonwealth in terms of safety standards for workplaces, and then sector-specific safety protocols and best practices. And then finally, they shared what some of those mandatory safety standards are going to look like. So this, we expect to see more on the 18th, and we're following that really closely. So just 2 other things. The first one is that I think many of you know that every week, the Chief of Arts and Culture for the City of Boston and her staff, the Chief of Arts and Culture for the City of Boston, Cara Elliott Ortega, and her staff host a weekly arts and cultural industry webinar. That's Fridays at 3 p.m. This week, it will feature Chief of Economic Development, John Barros, and Chief of Policy and Planning, Joyce Lenahan, and they are going to start talking to us about the reopening plan for Boston. If you are a resident of Boston or you run and lead a cultural organization that is within Boston, I highly encourage you to attend this today. There's a link in the chat box to register. It's every Friday at 3 p.m. It's really important that we show up for this one to get information, and then also make sure that it's clear about the sheer number of folks who care about this issue. Then finally, I want to talk for a moment about arts education. So as schools were required to shut down and move to remote learning for the end of this school year and are making plans for the fall semester, we already saw that access to arts education was restricted, and that's something that we're very concerned about. We work in partnership with the Arts for All Coalition that is made up of arts education policy leaders and advocates, and we put together some COVID-19 specific policy recommendations, you'll see it in the chat box, to share with legislators, education leaders, and we have been doing advocacy directly to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. We also are working to support advocacy partnerships that are coming together in local school districts around parents, students, and arts teachers. You know, we expect that many elected officials are going to have to make difficult decisions, specifically about school budgets. And we are really, really focused on making sure that arts education is not cut out of those school budgets when tough decisions are made. That's going to take a grassroots organizing effort, and we are here to support those efforts. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Emily, for giving all that context. All of that context is to say, here are the things that you can take action on this week regarding the reopening guidelines. So it's something that we're thinking about a lot, you're thinking about a lot, and so we want to make sure that we can tell a great story about the creative sector's role in the reopening, and to be able to share that with our elected officials. So on our main advocacy page, the 2 top things that you can do is to prep your personal story and then prep to share our action alert that will be coming out early next week. All right, so to give you a little context on why we're asking you to do this, so why share your personal story? So I probably don't need to tell you why storytelling is important. You are creatives, but storytelling helps connect us with other people. It's always important. It's especially important now while we're isolating. And then when you build a connection with someone, it gets people to listen to you. It's also what makes us uniquely human and not robots. So we have to make sure to be a little bit vulnerable so that people connect with us. A big ask, but really important. And then why share our action alert? So we want to create a ripple effect. It's important not for us to just take personal action and things that we care about, but to invite others. and to take collective action. That's really what makes an impact, is when it moves beyond ourselves and beyond our circles. It's also what shows power in numbers, and it builds visibility for the creative community. I think that we all know what is happening. Our closest people know what's happening, but I often think about, does my uncle know that this is happening? Does my neighbor know that this is happening? So we want to build visibility for the creative community. And then we want to show that the creative community is, they're leaders in civic engagement and leaders in advocacy. So we want to provide this opportunity for you. People are really looking to advocacy right now. Our role has always been important, but especially so now. And so we want to provide you an opportunity to be seen as a leader in that as well. All right, so some quick tips on sharing your personal story. This is to take us back to kindergarten. If you can imagine your favorite book that you either read to your kid or a young kid in your life, or your favorite when you were little, it absolutely follows this formula. Good stories got to have a great beginning. It has a twist that captures your attention, and then an end that lifts you up. Just like our favorite children's stories and our favorite stories, we want to do that same thing. In terms of sharing your story for social change and on social justice issues, we refer to Marshall Gans, who teaches at the Harvard Kennedy School. He worked with Cesar Chavez in the United Farm Workers Movement. Lots of folks have been through this training with us or other folks before. He says that you need to tell 3 stories in order to create change. And those 3 stories are your story of self, so your personal story, why you do what you do, the collective story of us. So why does it matter beyond you and beyond our community? And then the story of now. So what are we asking people to do? Why now? So telling those 3 stories. And then we've created a tool that if folks have come to our statewide advocacy day, have seen before, or any of our regional trainings, it's our public narrative worksheet, which will appear in the chat box, but it follows these prompts of I am, before I was, then I, now I am, I believe, and that's why. This follows that same story arc of beginning, twist, uplifting, end, and is a great way to help you process the real part of your story and make it personal when you're sharing that with your elected official or a decision maker. All right, so that's all on storytelling. And then, like I mentioned, we're putting out an action alert on Monday, early next week. So we just wanted you to be thinking about how to fit that into your schedule, since we know there's a lot of things pulling for your time. And as we prepare that, we want you to be thinking about how you can put it to use immediately when it comes out. So this is really simple. Just schedule time and space in your upcoming social media calendar, your newsletter, even your email calendar. We know that sending a dedicated alert is what actually helps this ripple out and show power in numbers. So think about that. And then, like always, we want to make this really easy. We want to create a toolkit, so you just add water and it becomes a flower. So our toolkit will include templates for newsletters, email, social media posts, graphics. And then we know that folks are being really creative right now in figuring out how to use online platforms and adapting things beyond what we usually do. So if you have ideas of additional tools that would be helpful, let me know and let the team know. We'll do our best to create something that everyone can use, but we want to be as helpful as we can. If you want to do some other actions or more actions, like always, we point you to this portion of our website that allows you to do that. So thank you all. I'm passing it back to Emily.
Thank you, Tracy. As always, your feedback is very much welcome and appreciated. And then I want to remind you, we will be back here at 9:45 on Monday, May 22nd. Thank you all for your participation in this, for your good work advocating and in collaborating to make sure that we are a strong, united, creative, and cultural sector. Have a good weekend. As always, try to get outside. Thanks all. Thank you, team. Thank you, MASSCreative team. This is we do it together. Bye now.